It's the economy, stupid, Jim Carville once said, and it still is. Let's take a look at how we can increase jobs in Pennsylvania next on Behind the Headlines.
This is Behind the Headlines, with behind-the-scenes analysis on issues affecting Pennsylvanians, sponsored by the Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy. Now, here's your host.
Hi, welcome to a new edition of Behind the Headlines. I'm Charlie Greenewalt, Senior Fellow for the Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy. And I'm joined in this new year and this new season by my co-host, Maura Donnelly. Maura, welcome back and Happy New Year.
Thank you, Charlie. Happy New Year to you as well.
Well, thank you very much. We have an interesting new year in front of us. First, I guess I'd like to touch on two things to begin the new year with you, Maura. One, of course, is the unfortunate passing of Dick Winters, of course, the great warrior from Hershey, Pennsylvania, the commander of Easy Company, and the individual who the Band of Brothers was written about by Stephen Ambrose, and of course the miniseries was done as well. He was a great American, a true hero, and a great civic activist here in Pennsylvania. He'll be missed.
Yeah, a quiet man and quiet passing, so it's nice to acknowledge that.
Indeed. Secondly, we want to say, well, we're in the verge of having perhaps parliamentary government. The Republicans control the governorship. The Republicans control the House. The Republicans control the Senate. So therefore, why don't we call for perhaps the governor-elect, Governor-elect Corbett could conduct a question period once a month. Go to the well of the House of Representatives and have a joint session of the General Assembly and have a public, televised, back and forth question period with the members of the legislature, just as the Parliament does in Canada or in Great Britain. It would increase interest in state government, knowledge of state government, and accountability between the executive and the legislature. Sometimes they don't talk to one another, Maura.
Well, I think you should call him today and suggest that.
Well, we've written about it before,
yes.
but we're going to promote that's not a bad idea, we've always thought. To begin the new year, of course, the big issue of the new year, and has been for some time, is jobs, 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 our economy. And what better person to talk about it than one of the leading business people in Pennsylvania. He's been with us before, and he only scratched the surface previously when he was with us, Maura, and that is Scott Wagner, the president and owner of Penn Waste. Scott, welcome to the show.
Good morning, how are you?
Nice to see you.
Happy New Year to you.
Thank you very much.
Why, let's start with a clean slate. We've had you on before, and you had wonderful ideas on how to strengthen Pennsylvania's economy. It's a new year, it's a new administration, it's a new business year for you. What would you and other Pennsylvania businessmen like to start with in terms of changing our state economy to strengthen it so that we can have more jobs and permanent jobs, Scott?
Well, Charlie, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I actually have a short list of 8 items, and I'll just run down the list real quickly. But I think item number 1 that's very important for businesses, especially for the medical community, and it would flow down to businesses, would be legal and tort reform. I think that's been talked about for probably half of my lifetime, and it hasn't happened. And I think this is a really big issue that we have to deal with.
If we can just deal with the lawyers in the General Assembly and the influence of the trial lawyers on that one.
Correct, and I, on the medical side, I'm in the waste business and I'm not in the medical business, but I have doctor friends, and you hear about medical malpractice, and Pennsylvania doesn't have limits, such as say the state of Texas. The state of Texas instituted limits on medical malpractice. And when they did that, they actually, started bringing in doctors again. And we have a lot of doctors that are leaving Pennsylvania. And at the end of the day, when you lose good doctors because the cost of practicing in Pennsylvania is much higher than other states, that has an effect on the healthcare system in Pennsylvania. And that would mean that my company would pay more for healthcare services, along with other companies throughout the state of Pennsylvania. So if we have a neighboring state that has malpractice limits, and they've had tort reform, go through their system, they can be more competitive than Pennsylvania. And so
I understand that it is one of the top priorities of the new governor to have some legal and tort reform. It's going to be the first piece of legislation introduced. And I think in the past, the influence that the trial lawyers have had over, especially leadership in the General Assembly, has been much greater. So I think there's a lot of optimism about getting something done on tort reform as we head into this new legislative session. Yep. So it's very good.
Yeah,
good news.
I think that is a top priority. And that may be the #1 priority. Coming out with with the new agenda. Second on my list is unemployment compensation reform. Recently, just within the last 30 days, an additional the federal administration has extended unemployment for another 12 weeks. So now we've gone from 99 weeks to 111 weeks. And over the summer, Governor-elect Corbett made a statement about people out there collecting unemployment really not looking hard for jobs. Governor-elect Corbett, really got slammed by the press, but he really made a true statement. It was very, very true. We see it in our business. We actually have some people that have come in this past year and have really evaluated how much they can make net with our company if they actually work versus continuing on their unemployment. It's happening, and we see it in our business, and it's being experienced by other companies. And I think if what we've almost done is we've been giving out morphine to a group. I mean, I hate to say it, but it's weaning them off of the morphine, and it's if we cut back on unemployment benefits and we make some reforms, there are jobs. At our company, we probably have 4 to 5 positions currently. I just saw in the York Sunday News that York Wall Coverings, a wallpaper manufacturer in York, is growing internationally, and they are now looking to hire 20 employees. Mm-hmm. And so, and I know that Kinsley Construction in York has a steel fabrication facility in the east end of town, east end of York. They're looking for skilled welders, and probably right now looking for 4 to 6 skilled welders. And they're out there. So I think if we make some changes, we're gonna have people go back to work, and I think that's the first step. But if we have free giveaways, and I understand there are needs, and it is a system that's needed, but I think it's gotten out of control. I mean, when you go from 52 weeks to 99 weeks, and you add another 12, and you're at 111 weeks, there's not an incentive to get back to work.
Mara, what did you hear about Governor-elect Corbett's statement during the summer?
Oh, he was chastised greatly for making that statement, and we had spoken to you previously, and we knew that same story. So it was very interesting to, when you're in the middle of an election, though, you're going to hear both sides, and he was greatly criticized for making that statement, but it is true. It is absolutely true, and I think that I hope that this becomes one of their top priorities in this new administration.
Yep, I think it's critical. I think thirdly, and this is a large item for our business, and it's large for Pennsylvania businesses in general, and that's workers' comp reform. There are workers who are injured, and there are legitimate injuries, and what has happened with the workers' comp process is that if there is a case hanging out there, we really are at the mercy of the judge, the workers' comp referee / judge, who pushes the case, and we don't know when that case is going to move. We have cases that really could be resolved within 6 to 9, 12 months, and sometimes they take years. I've been in the waste business since 1985, and probably over the last 25 years, I've also had probably 5 fraud cases that have cost our company companies in excess of $1 million. Those 5 cases, and we're continuing to pay benefits. We're paying all kinds of medical costs. I mean, there are IMEs, independent medical exams, doctor visits, and these cases. And interesting, we had one recently that was closed out in the last 3 years. That when the employee came to our company and applied for a job, on his application, and actually he worked as a temp employee through a temp agency for 90 days. And we had a policy then that if you work for 90 days, you could come to work for our company and we would hire you. So he filled out an application, went through the process, and lo and behold, he happened to miss 2 or 3 employers on his application. He also happened to miss an employer that he received a $90,000 workers' comp settlement. He failed to disclose on his application that employer, you know, and again, as an employer, we can't find this information out, you know, when we hire. But it took us approximately 2 years to dispose of this case, almost 2.5 years, and at a cost of, you know, between $75,000 and $100,000. And that's just added cost to a system. So we badly, and there are no deadlines with these cases. And I think, honestly, if I had my wish list, there should be specific deadlines. When a case starts, you know, in 90 days, something should be decided. In another 90 days, it should be decided. And there's deadlines. And, you know, I hear the state's totally overloaded with these cases. Well, you know, I'll be honest with you, that's not my problem. You know, I'm running a business and I'm trying to be competitive. Maybe the state
And you
ought
have
to.
deadlines.
I have deadlines.
Yeah.
You know, maybe the state ought to pick up the legal costs, start paying my legal costs, you know, for my business for these cases. Because
That'll resolve them quickly.
Yeah, sure.
Well, in the interest of time, we have to move on. What are the next items?
Well, I just, you know, I also have the PHRC, Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission. I think that's an agency that has, in my opinion, has gotten out of control. I think there's a need for, you know, what this agency does. I don't know a lot about it. What I do know, and again, sometimes I know enough to be dangerous, that it's a highly political agency, and there are appointees, and you know, again, cases just move through like watching paint dry.
Right.
And we have.
Or they don't move at all.
They don't move at all.
Right.
And there's a cost. I mean, we have to respond. Typically, you know, our HR department is involved, and we don't have many of these cases, but we have one right now where I believe someone within the agency left, and now we have to basically start all over again. And the information is an inch thick. So there's a cost to doing, you know, responding to these issues and these complaints.
Okay,
So
3.5 minutes.
Okay. I'm going to roll fast. Capital stock tax. I think taxes and fees. Prevailing wage. Again, we have a new school that was just built in York, part of the Dallastown School District. Beautiful school. I'm going to, you know, maybe say the school is a $65 million project. What percentage of that had prevailing wages? You know, we talk about when we see road construction, bridge projects being done, prevailing wages. You know, if there's some prevailing wage reform, maybe we could have 20 more bridge projects going on. And if there's 20 more bridge projects with 20 people working on that project, that's 400 people that could be employed. So prevailing wage. But I think, you know, this is a really, really big issue. And I think this really, you know, this is where the governor really is going to have his hands full, and it's the size of government. Government is completely out of control. And government's growing. And I know the federal government says it's not growing. Well, it is growing. And you know, in York County, our 3 largest employers are WellSpan, the U.S. government, and the County of York. There are no, you know, private businesses in that mix. So government is getting bigger, and you know, I believe there are huge privatization opportunities. First idea I have is maybe the state, instead of having PennDOT take care of I-83 from the Maryland line to the Harrisburg 83-81 split, how about if they go out for bid, and have a contractor or a maintenance company take care of the grass mowing, take care of the weed control, take care of picking up all the trash from the Maryland line the whole way up to Harrisburg, instead of having the state do it.
So you want more privatization
I
of
think there's
services.
huge opportunities with privatization. And private industry has proven over and over again that it can do it faster and more efficient.
Yeah.
Well, one last thing before we conclude, and that is what about financing? Is financing available for business right now? And what have you experienced there in 30 seconds? And if not, what could we do to make financing more readily available for startups and entrepreneurs?
Well, I think starting up businesses today and securing traditional financing is very difficult. There are private investors out in the market. If you have a good business plan and you have a good product and you can sell your product, there are private investors. I think as far as in our business, for example, you know, we use banks for ongoing equipment, capital purchases, trucks and containers. You know, our bankers are using, you know, they're watching everybody closer, and you know, our bank is M&T in York, and you know, we have a very thorough loan officer, a credit officer, and bankers are paying attention more. You know, I think we're starting to see you know, a little bit more availability of capital, but there are a lot of businesses that have had tough years.
Scrutiny isn't a bad idea.
Scrutiny is a great idea. Yeah, a great thing. So.
Okay, well, we want to thank you for being with us today, and there you've heard it, viewers. You've just received a list of Pennsylvania businesses' top priorities for the new year, ways that we could improve the economy, ways that we could grow jobs in Pennsylvania. And we'll have you back in the future to talk about the progress on these items, Scott, and we'll watch this throughout the year. Thank you for being with us again. We'll be back with segment 2 right after this.
Behind the Headlines is brought to you as a public service by the Pennsylvania Business Council, envisioning a commonwealth in which residents enjoy a very high quality of life in sustainable communities. The Council works aggressively to define key long-term policy strategies and solutions that make the Commonwealth more competitive, creating and sustaining a better Pennsylvania. Additional underwriting provided by the Worrell Corporation Foundation, based in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, by the Edward H. and Jeannie Arnold Foundation, and the American Home Bank, a nationally chartered and FDIC insured yet locally owned and operated bank in central Pennsylvania, and by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business. Behind the Headlines is also supported as a public service by Daily Express, transporting construction, farm, and industrial equipment throughout the United States, and by Penn Waste, your best local choice for your waste removal and recycling needs.
Hi, welcome back to Behind the Headlines. On the second segment of this particular show, Maura and I are joined by Dave Taylor, who's the Executive Director of the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Dave, Happy New Year and welcome to the show.
And same to you. Thanks
Hi, Dave.
very much
Nice
for
to see
having me
you.
on the program.
Happy New Year.
Well, Dave, we've just had one of Pennsylvania's leading businessmen, Scott Wagner, give us a list that businessmen would like to have come true to create jobs in Pennsylvania in the new year. You are the other side of things, being the director, the executive director of the
Scott's an
Pennsylvania
actual
Manufacturers
businessman. I'm just a
Association.
business advocate.
You are
Don't
an
say
advocate,
just. It's
and you
nothing
sort
just
of,
about it.
You sort of lead the businesses of the manufacturing businesses of Pennsylvania.
Right.
Wanted to get your take on a couple of different items. Number one, Maura and I would like to see, what do you believe is the legacy of the outgoing Rendell administration?
Well, there's no doubt that Ed Rendell, on his own terms, was you know, a very charismatic, dynamic, and you know, effective governor. Unfortunately, what he was effective at was dramatically expanding state government spending, dramatically expanding state government debt, to the point now where just the interest on the borrowing is over $1 billion a year. I mean, this is the mess that the new administration has been left with. So, I mean, the hallmark of Ed Rendell has been bigger government, more debt, higher spending, not a whole lot of accountability to go along with that. And I would say also that perhaps the longest lasting legacy of the Rendell years will be gambling. That the dramatic expansion of gambling across our Commonwealth during the Rendell years is going to have, in my opinion, far-reaching consequences for our society. Probably not good ones. So we'll see what comes in the years ahead. But I think those will be the real headlines.
So are you expecting a phone call from the governor to start yelling at you about your perception of gambling?
Well, you know, Governor.
Based on the 60 Minutes
Yes.
Yes, yeah. I mean, Governor Rendell and his folks have crossed swords with us before. I mean, again, like I said at the outset, you know, one cannot but admire his tenacity, his effectiveness, and certainly he's been a larger-than-life personality who has dominated the scene in Harrisburg. But I would argue that his administration has done an awful lot of damage to our economy, to our prospects for the future, and it makes it a heavier political lift for those who succeed him.
Well, and he did say recently in an interview, he's done several of his exit interviews, that he's going to go away and he's going to do other things, but you're going to hear back from him again if you start criticizing him.
Well,
and so, or if this new administration comes out in any way and is critical, we're going to hear from him.
Well,
he's not going to go anywhere.
it'll be entertaining.
Yes.
Now, leaving the Rendell administration and looking forward to the Corbett administration, Dave, what does the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association hope that will be in the immediate offing in terms of the Corbett administration
Well, certainly,
agenda?
I mean, the first and most important thing that that Governor Corbett has to do is to put forward a budget bridging the very large shortfall that faces the Commonwealth. That during the Rendell years that revenues went up 21%, but spending went up 40%. And so now with the end of the federal stimulus money, with just the shortfall on collections, the administration, the incoming administration is facing a multi-billion-dollar shortfall. Of course, the cornerstone of Governor Corbett's platform was no tax increases. So for him to craft a budget that scales back state government, refocuses on core functions, and eliminates those things that are either wasteful and inefficient or redundant, or quite frankly that the taxpayers can no longer afford, that will be unprecedented. He will be introducing his budget in the first days of March. That usually the budget address is the beginning of February, but a new administration gets an extra month's time. But as Governor Corbett staffs up with his key people in the administration, that budgetary work is being done behind the scenes. And I would also note it is a very positive sign for Governor Corbett to have selected the former Secretary of Education and Ridge Policy Director Charles Zogby. Charles is a very accomplished fellow who knows his way around Harrisburg. And is I would say, a skilled bureaucratic infighter. He is a person of the kind of mental toughness who will be needed to help the Corbett administration navigate these budgetary waters.
Well, we have Governor Rendell leaving, saying that one of the accomplishments he's most proud of is education, what he did for education. We have Governor Corbett coming in saying everything's on the table, even the sacred cow of education is on the table in terms of spending.
Yes, of course, and yes, that Governor Rendell did succeed in directing many additional hundreds of millions of dollars into the basic ed subsidy year after year. Unfortunately, you can't just purchase results in education. The money has to be spent wisely and well. You can go district by district across Pennsylvania, and you can see districts that are high spenders and high achievers, and districts that are high spenders and low achievers. And the same is true with low spending districts. Some low spending districts that don't perform well, other low spending districts that perform exceptionally well. There is no direct correlation between education spending and actual educational accomplishment on the part of our young people. So just shoveling more money at the system as it exists, it may be a great selling point, a great headline on a press release, but unfortunately it doesn't actually just by itself deliver results.
Do you have any idea where the new administration is going to look, other than the statement that everything's on the table, to close this perceived, believed to be $4 billion shortfall in the budget? Where do we start?
Well, I mean, obviously you have to go to the largest expenditures in the general fund budget, which would be welfare, education, and corrections. Of course, the governor and Governor Corbett and his team have said that that every line in the budget is going to have to justify its continued existence. Also, that the administration is seeking to privatize state-held assets that are not core to the state's functions. So I think things like selling off the antiquated liquor control system in the state stores, looking at privatizing or leasing state assets like for example, the Philadelphia Parking Authority, that revenues will be sought from those kinds of options. I mean, again, this is going to be unprecedented, but you know, again, marking the dramatic expansion of state government over the last couple of years, you could revert to a previous year's budget, going back to, you know, to the dark days of maybe, I don't know, 2007 or 2006. You know, I know that that'll make the liberals quake, but actually I remember those years, and civilization will not end if we revert back to those levels of spending.
Well, we had Mr. Wagner just gave us a list of about 8 items that he thinks should be the top priorities in terms of business in Pennsylvania, including legal reform, unemployment, workers' comp. Pretty traditional business list of concerns regarding our state's economy. Is there anything you would add to that or expand upon?
Well, I mean, that list, unsurprisingly, is an excellent one. I would note that that limiting lawsuit abuse is a long-standing concern, and
yes.
it is Pennsylvania, I think, is the only
Goes
major
back
state
decades.
in the nation.
Yes.
Yes, these are problems that have been unaddressed, unresolved for decades, and that legal reform, in particular, is something that that the business allies on the Hill are looking to advance. In the early months of the new administration, in particular, reinstating the Fair Share Act, getting rid of the antiquated and outmoded deep pockets rule of joint and several liability, extending the court-ordered reforms in the medical malpractice area, which have had a very positive effect, of just applying those across the board to the rest of the economy. And also, there are many, very simple, direct, common sense reforms that enjoy a broad consensus that have been sitting out there, as you said, not just for years but for decades. I believe that our legislative allies are going to advance what is a very reasonable, common sense agenda on legal reform, and that will move and achieve the governor's signature in the opening months of 2011.
Great.
How do we keep manufacturing from being further outsourced? And losing more Pennsylvania jobs?
Well, we have to improve our fundamentals, and there is no silver bullet, on how to do this. We need reform in all of the areas that that your previous guest mentioned. It isn't just one thing, but we need we need to put limits on lawsuit abuse. We need to have regulatory relief. And move back to the sort of compliance-based regulatory regimen of the Ridge years. To say that the point is not to to levy fines and play gotcha. The point is to help your private sector employers to be in compliance with the law. We need to have one of the issues that I do need to expound upon is that how badly broken Pennsylvania's unemployment compensation system is. That Pennsylvania is the 6th most populous state. We have the 2nd largest cash outlay on UC. Something is seriously wrong in terms of both the eligibility and also the overly generous levels of benefits. Certainly, the system exists to help those people who have lost their job through no fault of their own, while they are actively seeking work so they can return to the workforce. We need to press on that in a very timely manner.
Thank you very much, Dave, and thank you for being with us to start this new year. We appreciate it so much.
Well, it is always a pleasure.
And we look to see you next week again on another edition of Behind the Headlines. Maura and I will see you then.